Designing for all seasons. Now pay attention. You have a set number of open supply and exhaust devices required to ensure that the temperature under the roof is not exceeded even on the hottest days of summer. For the entire project, you need to calculate the required number of supply air louvers and roof vents for other outdoor temperatures as well. So now save this file as bh_20. Do the calculations for a lower temperature, namely 20 degrees. Change here. The supply air temperature is 20 degrees. The outside temperature is also 20 degrees. Calculate and view the report. The temperature under the roof drops, but the supply air temperature of 20 degrees is correct, and it will be slightly higher in the occupied zone because the air mixes. As for the pressure equalization zone, it is located approximately halfway up the building, and we will not change that. Close the report and save. Now select the save as BH16. Now move on to even lower temperatures. Perform calculations for an outside temperature of 16 degrees supply, air temperature 16, outside temperature 16. For outside temperatures below 20 degrees, you should start to retain heat under the roof so that, when mixed with the supply air, it provides a temperature of around 20 degrees in the area where people are present. Start by closing the roof. First, leave 20 open vents in the roof. Also start closing the supply air louvers in the bottom row. Calculate and view the report. The report shows that the temperature under the roof is quite low, which means that in the supply air area it will be very close to the outside temperature. In order to increase the temperature in the area where people may be present, it is necessary to close the additional supply air louvers and roof vents. Close the next vents. Leave 8 vents open. You have 4 inlet louvers open in the bottom row, 28 in the upper row, and 8 vents on the roof. Calculate and check the outcome. The temperature under the roof has increased, which will result in the work area also becoming warmer. However, you still have a fairly low pressure equalization zone. Therefore, try to leave only 6 vents open and only 2 air supply louvers in the bottom row. Calculate, view the report. The report shows that the temperature under the roof is already better, 37 degrees. For further improvement, you can do the following. Close the bottom row completely. Calculate, view the report. Accept this result. You can see that it has to stay that way. Save this data. Okay. Now save this file as BH8. Go to the calculations for an outside temperature of 8 degrees. Change the supply air temperature to 8 degrees. The outside temperature is also 8 degrees. You already know that you have to continue closing the roof vents. Leave 4 open. The bottom row of air vents is completely closed, but you already need to start closing the upper row as well. At 8 degrees, try to leave 20 louvers open. Calculate, see the report. The temperature under the roof is just under 36 degrees. Leave the pressure equalization zone as it is. You need to continue closing the ventilation louvers. Leave 16 open. Do the calculations and see the report. In the report, you can see that the temperature under the roof continues to drop. Close another vent, leaving only 3 open. Do the calculations and view the report. The temperature under the roof has risen, so you will also have a higher, slightly more pleasant temperature in the ground floor zone. This comes at the cost of the pressure equalization zone being significantly shifted downward. But that's just how it is. Close this report and save it. Save the current file as BH0. Perform the next calculations for a temperature of 0 degrees. At the outside temperature of 0 degrees, you must, of course, change this in the input data for the calculations. You definitely need to close the other air supply devices and see what effect you get. The temperature under the roof still has some leeway before reaching the limit. Look at the position of the pressure equalization zone. It's fine. Try to increase the temperature under the roof by closing another vent, leaving two open. Calculate, see the report. The exhaust air temperature is very close to the acceptable level under the roof, which also means the maximum possible temperature increase in the ground floor zone. Cold air flows in through the open louvers in the upper row, descends, mixing with the warm air in the building, and then rises once it has been heated. You can accept these calculations, so save them. Save the current file as BH-10. Similar to the previous procedure, you will now calculate the number of open supply air dampers and exhaust natural vents for an outside temperature of -10 degrees. Now correct the input data. Outside temperature -10 degrees, natural air supply temperature -10 degrees. Number of open exhaust vents 2, and try 4 for the number of open air supply louvers. Calculate and view the report. The report shows that the temperature under the roof is 38 degrees, and the pressure distribution looks quite decent here. It should be remembered that the pressure difference between the ground floor of the building and the outside pressure cannot exceed -50 pascals. This is stipulated by fire regulations so the doors can be opened. Save the current file as BH-20. These will be the last calculations for an outside temperature of -20 degrees. Supply air temperature -20 degrees. Outside temperature -20 degrees. Try closing another vent, leaving only one open and only 3 blinds open. Calculate and view the report. The report shows that the temperature under the roof exceeded the permissible value. What can you do? You should open the roof a little more, but remember that with 2 vents, you still had a large margin to the limit. Here, we do the following. We enter 1.5. Why? What does this mean? It means that 1.5 vents are open. You can do this because vents of this design have 2 flaps that can be opened separately. If you open one completely and only one flap in the other, it will be exactly 1.5. See what comes out of it. Calculate and see the report. The temperature under the roof is 37 degrees. You still have some leeway here. The pressure equalization zone is okay, but let's close one more air intake, so only 2 remain open. Calculate again and see the report. Right now, you have the maximum possible temperature under the roof, which means the maximum possible temperature in the basement. Look at the negative pressure in the basement of the building. It turns out that we cannot accept this solution because the negative pressure in the basement exceeds -50 pascals, and it won't be possible to open the doors or gates manually. Therefore, you need to try a little more. So go back to 3 open air vents. The report shows a temperature of 37 degrees under the roof. The pressure difference between the ground floor of the building and the atmospheric pressure outside is an acceptable -45 pascals. This seems to be acceptable. Of course, it can still be optimized in various ways, but this brings us to extremely low winter temperatures. You can save this solution as the last of your calculations. You can return to these calculations at any time and continue to optimize them, taking into account various other factors necessary when designing such an installation. Thank you.